Welcome back to your next stop. In this episode, I speak with Paulie Veneto. You guys, he's one of my favorite humans of all time. This man just is so inspirational, but just has a heart of gold. You might remember him from episode 131, way back when he first walked his beverage cart from Logan Airport down to 9/11 on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 tragedy. I got in touch with him because I saw him through social media, kind of walk through a town that I used to live in. And I was like, I want to know more about this. So Paulie and I catch up, but we also go through all of the different legs he has done. He was a flight attendant, and one of the routes that he used to do was flight 175. And that 175 is the one that hit the second tower. He wasn't working the day that happened on 9/11. And it haunted him. And then there was an addiction, that he fought for many years because of the guilt and the anger. And then every year when the crew members weren't honored, like the first responders, he knew he needed to change. So this is such an inspiration. Such an inspiration, but you can just hear the love that Paulie does. And he tells us little stories of people that he's met along the way, that he has actually changed their lives in a good way. And that's what this man is all about. So don't forget to like, rate, review, and share. But I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I do. You can follow Paulie, pauliespush.com, and also on Instagram, Paulie's Push. Welcome back to your next stop. This is Juliette Hahn. Oh my gosh, Paulie Veneto. You were on episode 131. And that was, we were just trying to figure out this. But guys, just a little background. Paulie, he was a crew member on Flight 175. And if you have not heard his original story, please go back to 131, because what Paulie has been doing this last number of years and what he endured, he was not on the flight. He witnessed it go into the second tower from a friend's house because he was building a cement wall. He had off that day, just the tremendous guilt and everything that he felt afterwards. And then not having the crew members really honored really ate him up. And then there was, some addiction, which again, you can go into 131, but you have been on a mission, Paulie. So you guys can go follow him, pauliespush.com. There's videos. I just was watching one of the videos and I was in tears. Paulie's Push also on Instagram. And you're going to catch us up with everything that you've been doing, but you have been on a mission and doing so many amazing things. And I know this is overwhelming because right when we first met, you had just finished walking from Logan down to 9/11. Someone sent me a video of you in Darien, Connecticut, which I had moved from. And I was like, wait a second, what is this guy doing? And I just instantly fell in love with you because your personality and who you are, but then your mission. So welcome to your next stop.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Yeah, I'm excited about being back here because, as I told you in the email, it's amazing because I get flooded back at the beginning of when I started, and the people that reached out to me, I'll never forget it. It's really special.
Well, the thing that I think there's so many things that we can talk about. Again, people that are new to your story, I want you to kind of touch on what you've been doing. But again, this was your life. You flew, you were, a flight attendant. You loved it. You really painted the picture of why you got into it when you were younger. You have tons of siblings. Was it 11? And if I'm remembering that correct, that's crazy. Was it 11? How many siblings do you have?
Oh, there's a total of 9 of us. So I got 5 sisters and 3 brothers.
Yeah. Yes. I knew it was big, but I was like, if I remember 11, that's crazy from all these years ago. Right. So, and you were like the one that kind of did his own thing. You loved traveling, and you guys can obviously hear his wonderful Boston accent, which is just one of the things that I absolutely love. But let's go that 9/11 tribute that you walked when you went from, again, Logan. I remember something that really stuck with me because there were so many things in that interview that really touched me. But one of the things that you said is, that's when you got clean, and it was the first step of you taking the beverage cart. So again, you guys can go look and listen back to 131 on your next stop. But Paulie had his beverage cart, and he was addicted to drugs, just getting clean. And you were like, I gotta get out and do something. I have to do more for my crew members and show that I'm here. I can't let my life go. And when you said that in so many words, I was like, oh my gosh, the burden that you also were putting on for, and I don't want to say burden, but the guilt that you were putting on for yourself, but then you knew you had to do something more. And the people that rallied around you to help you kind of really get there. So you talked about, and I will not forget the moment that you told me, and I pictured in my mind, because you got the beverage cart and you started taking a little bit of steps because you weren't in shape, right? You were not in a good place.
Oh, no, not at all. No, it was, it's just, my hands are sweating thinking about it, because as you're saying that, it's bringing me right back to those moments myself. And,
right.
But I can tell you that there was never a thought in my mind that I wasn't gonna do it, because there was no. I wish I had the words to explain it, but there was no barriers that were going to stop me from getting from Logan to Ground Zero, New York. It just wasn't. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had no idea, but I just knew I'd be there on September 11th. So then the things started to happen. People started popping into my life on the street, and it was just crazy. I'm like, I get chills thinking about it. The stories are endless.
And you know what? And this is one of the things that we talk about, and I'm not going to get too much in this, because when you're in the flow and when things are meant to happen in your life, and, I believe in God, but whether you believe in God or the universe, there is a path. And when you are on that right path, crazy miracles like your sweatshirts just happen. And I have just been in the last, I want to say year, and I've always had like moments of flow that have like built me up to what I'm doing now. And we'll talk about that on the side. I mean, obviously it's with the podcast and it's still going, but I started another podcast. I started a new job, because of the podcast and my storytelling consulting. And it's just the people that come into your life, as you said, when you're in that flow, is just, it's not nothing that you can express or even explain, because it's so bizarre.
Exactly. It really, really is. I mean, that's when, I don't know what's bigger than us. What started this whole thing? We could debate it. Everyone can debate it. But when that stuff happens here, I don't think it happens to everybody. Mm-mm. But the ones that have had it happen to them know exactly what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Because words don't explain it. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've sat alone after an encounter and would think to myself, I can't believe what just happened. And there's no one I can tell, because they couldn't comprehend it. But it's like a feeling like, I don't know how to explain it. I just don't.
No, and it is right. When you go to explain it to someone that has never had that happen, they kind of look at you like, a little odd there. But when you know, and it is just incredible. So again, you decided, I'm gonna walk, right? Like, when did that? Because you took the cart, and I still remember when I re-listened to the episode where I was in Long Island. I was out looking over the water, and I re-listened to our episode, and I was sobbing, but I was picturing you walking along, and I still, whenever I pass this place, you're the first person that pops into my mind.
I could tell you when I thought of this idea was 1 year after 9/11, and I was on an airplane working, and after all the memorials, the first anniversary, and I was angry. I mean, are they going to mention these guys? I was so angry. And to myself, I was standing in the galley of an airplane in flight, and I looked at the beverage cart, and I said to myself, I know how I'll get them recognized. I'll push that friggin' thing from the gate they left out on the street to New York. That was in 2002. So, unfortunately, my story is I fell into an addiction, and that really prevented me from really, accomplishing what deep in my soul I knew needed to get done. And every year the anniversary go up, and I was fueled by that. Like, Jesus, I can't believe nobody's doing anything. So when I got clean in 2015, the light went on, and I knew at that moment when the obsession was lifted, I'm going to get this done. Now, I knew that I couldn't do it until I was physically, mentally able, so I didn't know when that would be. I just kept staying clean and sober and trying to turn my life around, come back into society. And I didn't know the 20th anniversary was coming up. I had no idea. I was 5 years sober. But something clicked in my head and said, "You're ready." And I started out walking. And then from there, it just took off.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the beauty of it. As you said, you would get angry on so many levels because it was like no one's talking about the people that you had worked with every day and you knew they had families. And, so many people were obviously touched in some way with 9/11, and it just, and then that fueled you. But the thing is, again, for anyone listening that fights addiction, has had it, sometimes when there's a bigger purpose for you and you don't know how you're going to do it, it's just that determination. Cause I think we talked about it because I had shared with you, my sister was an addict, or is an addict. She's clean. And then my nephew, and it was at a time where my nephew was still really suffering. He's been clean now for 2 years, which is amazing. But I said to you, like, well, what clicked? Because I'm I'm like a helper. I love to like be able to help people. That's like something deep in my soul, and I want to be able to inspire someone. And you said it was like, you're like, I can't even explain it. It was just, it was kind of like, this is what you're meant to do, and this is, and I'm going to show you the path, right? So that again, and one of the things, a story that has stuck out in my mind so much. You told me, and I remember exactly where it was in Darien, because you said I had passed the store and I could picture, because obviously I lived there. And you said this gentleman, you saw him out of the corner. You saw a bunch of kids at the top that were all waving and excited to see you. And you saw this gentleman come out of his house very slowly. And you're like, he's still walking. And you knew that you needed to stop and go over. And he put his hand on your shoulder and grabbed your hand and said, thank you. Thank you. I can't unsee what I have seen. And thank you for doing what you're doing. And you said you knew there was no names or anything exchanged, but you assumed that he was someone that was in the helicopter watching people jump from.
Yeah.
And you said that experience, like, again, you had those the whole time. You could feel as you got closer to New York, the people just coming out of cars, because your story resonated with people. People want to be inspired. People want to do good, but sometimes people don't know how. So, after you finished, and did you know, okay, the following year, I'm going to honor this flight, and the following year. So can you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So I couldn't have, and the people on my team could never have thought what we were in for. We could never. So we were in awe as we get into Connecticut, and through the whole thing, it was just unbelievable. When we get to Ground Zero, the 20th anniversary, and it was just overwhelming. So when I came back, we got back to Boston. Of course, my mind was thinking, it's people wanted me to be prepared for this crash. And I sort of understood what they were talking about, but I didn't, But of course, I found out. But
right.
What I can tell you is that it didn't stop. What didn't stop was the people coming into my life. In other words, this gentleman from a couple of towns over from me, donates a $50,000 mobile home to me and says, I want you to take this and keep doing what you're doing. And I was where I'm sitting right now. I almost fell over when I was on the phone and he called me. This guy, I was speechless, and it wouldn't stop. Like things just wouldn't stop. So at that point, the whole thing was, it's all about making sure we recognize these people in a proper way, that their families are comforted. And so I had so many things going in my head, like I don't want this thing to turn into something that it's not, and all the stuff I knew nothing about. I don't know. All I had to worry about was pushing the cart. There was a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Now the second year, I was on my own. So I knew I had to incorporate. I knew I had to become a nonprofit. Stuff I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about that. I don't have a clue. But I had to get a lawyer. I had to do all the things I had to do because I never want this, and it won't be, and it never will be about money. It's not about money. But I learned that you need money to accomplish certain things, and I hate that part of the whole thing. But so I just wanted it to be legal and whatever, because it's important. So that's when the few people on my team that stuck with me discussed it and said, this is what I'd like to do. And all of them, absolutely, whatever we can do. So they've stuck with me. And I mean, it's amazing to me what these people, friends, have sacrificed from their families, their incomes. They've stayed out of work for weeks at a time along the road. No income. It's nuts. It's crazy to me. But so that's where that started. What the major point was that our mobile home was telling me something. That this thing, I got to do something. Hey, this guy's donating this thing to me to do this, and that, it was just a sign. That's all it was. So that's when I decided I'll do the second push, which for me was, it's unbelievable how it fell into place, because the second push was a shorter one. It was only 35 miles.
Because that was Washington to the Pentagon, right? So that was,
Washington to the Pentagon where Flight 77 went. So there wasn't as much, as 220 miles Boston to New York. In other words, that was, so I could sort of, my head wrap around it. And so I started from calling the airport, the police in Washington. That was the first call I made. And it was, I can tell you, it was unbelievable. I was sitting here on the phone, and this head cop at the airport in Washington, as I'm talking, he goes, "You're not going to believe it. I'm on your website right now." And he said, "I'll do everything in my power to make sure this thing gets accomplished." And he said, "Please just bear with me. We just built a new terminal here." And no, that was Newark. I'm sorry, that was Newark. Washington was, he goes, "We're busy. I'll get back to you." Oh, no, it is Washington. Yeah. Was it Washington? Was Washington?
There's so many experiences that you have.
Yeah, Newark's got the new airport. Washington. Well, anyways, when we did the drive-through, he told me, he said, "Contact me when you get it." Whatever. It was a big, and of course, I'm back in nurse. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to organize this thing. And sure enough, this guy made sure he put a Zoom thing together with all the people at the airport, the head people, big bosses, run the whole place. I don't know. And I got my team on the Zoom, and they I told my team, "Listen, let them do it. That's every airport. We have whatever." And sure enough, they set the whole thing up. I'm sure you see the videos. They had fire trucks out the runway. The American Airlines stepped up and said, "We want you to leave from the room that the crew briefed that morning." We had a ceremony there. It was just unbelievable. They never shut a runway down at Washington Dulles, even for a president. And they shut the runway down. It was unbelievable. So
that is incredible.
Set this off, and and of course my friend's best friend sister was in the Pentagon on 9/11 and lost a friend, and she's a retired colonel. And so she came on board and was my connection to the Pentagon. I mean, their father was the pilot that dropped the second atomic bomb in World War II, General Sweeney. So, I mean, I needed a connection because they're not going to let me roll a beverage cart to the Pentagon. So I called him and I said, "Joe, they're not going to say no to you. Your father ended World War II, It was funny how it all worked out. But anyways. So that's where that all started, and it was just as special as the first one. Short of it was just unbelievable. The people and the stories, and it was just, we were like, and then of course the last one, this movie just finished, was just out of control. It was just.
Yeah. So I want to go to that next, but I mean, so many things that you said, and this is what, I started this podcast to share stories. I mean, one of the things that we are storytellers, you and I both. We want to share other people's stories. We have our own story, and that's what drives us, but we want to share other people's stories as well. And the thing that's so, again, when the dots connect or the puzzle pieces are in there, right? You have this whole vision, and so many people don't allow themselves, because they think, how am I going to do it? Right? How am I going to have this big dream that I created in my mind? How am I going to execute it? And what I always say is, it's that one little step. If you keep getting something in your brain that's like, I need to do this, you need to do it. And you need to kind of think like you thought about your connections, right? Because it is about the connecting. It's about connecting with the people that can be there, and everyone can see that you're doing this from your heart. There's nothing else. You are not doing this for fame. You're not doing this for money. As you said, you are doing this because you want to honor the people that you worked with and the people that you want, you know, that you believe so much in and that you loved so much. And that's what it shows in everything you do. So people are going to want to rally around you, right? They want to feel that feeling that you have, because so many people don't get a chance to have that inspiration. They don't have something. And even though I mean, what you went through, I mean, tragedy, right? I mean, it is a lot. It's a lot for someone to do, but the fact that you were able to, you know, once you got clean, turn it around, there's so many different little nuggets and avenues that you can share with other people. And that feeling that you just embody, like when you're sharing your story, like you can feel the excitement. And that's what, when you're calling people, they're like, well, let me look, you know, because it's not like, oh, who's this yo-ho? It's like, okay, wait, this guy's got something to say. So, you know, the fact that it just, again, went so smooth, and that there's all the little bumps, right? All the little bumps that happen. Yeah. But for the most part, when it goes smooth, it's like, okay.
Well, you know, the funny thing I have to tell you is that, like, I knew in my soul I was gonna get from Boston to ground zero. I really did. No matter what was going on, all the media, all that stuff didn't make that thing was going there. And my buddies who were, thank God, were doing what they could, talking with the police or fire ahead of me or whatever they were doing. They were nervous. You can't talk to so many people on the street. We got to get, you know, they were in that mode. And I'm so grateful for that. But after a week on the street, I kept telling them, I said, listen, I don't care. Every single person that's standing out in that street, I'm stopping them. I don't care, because I'll carry this thing on my back if I have to. We'll be at ground zero. But after a week on the street, I started noticing these guys understanding what I was talking about. And they realized that the true meaning of this was the people on the street. I get emotional. They got to witness what I was witnessing. The experience of these people coming out to share stories they haven't been able to tell for years, crying with me in the middle of the street. It was, so that's why once someone gets to, I don't expect anybody to feel it or see it, but once you're there to witness it, you can't help but being in it. You can't help it.
I love that. And you can't help but be in it, because that's, again, it's the energy. There's something with that energy when you are doing something so powerful and so beyond just one person. I mean, this is a movement. I mean, Paulie, what you've created an amazing movement. And as you said, the people that you have collected along the way, because they believe in the movement. They believe in you, right? They believe in what you're doing, but they also see the bigger picture and how it's affecting. That must have been, as you said, you get so emotional, but that must have been like, oh my gosh, okay, this person, it's almost like a movie, right? It's almost like, is there a movie camera following me around? Like, what's going on? Because it is that, again, it's that universe, it's that God, that like, when things are just meant to happen, and it's so hard to explain, but it's this feeling of just, holy crap. And I love it. I mean, it's, again, and I'm so thankful to have been in contact with you. I mean, I think I emailed, I forget how I said, I need to have you on the podcast. I know you just did this thing, but then just following your journey and seeing the people that have stayed with you, right? And stayed with you. And sometimes people stay with you for a period of time because they believe in it, and then their lives go somewhere else, but they touched you in a way that you needed to kind of get that momentum. And it is just, there's so many people out there that are doing good things, but not a lot of times they get highlighted, right? Because it's like, they could be small, it could be something, but there's so much in this world, so much anger and hate and that the media talks about, but these are the stories that are the ones that matter. People like you that are, out there selflessly having a bigger meaning, a bigger thing, and connecting with so many individuals that just want to share their story. As you said, they haven't been able to express it. You helped so many people heal that day or start their healing in every one of your walks. And that's what is beautiful.
Well, the amazing part to me is like, there's only one reason I do it, and it will never change no matter what. I've always said it I understand why people are drawn to the media, whatever, and I know nothing about that, but I'm not stupid either. I see whatever. But the bottom line is, I don't care what's going on, because this thing's going here for this reason. So there were people always try to give you advice, and I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. And the reason I bring it up is because specifically, my recovery story is important. I couldn't do this without it. And of course, I'm so grateful for that. Believe me. But I'm not doing this for that. And a lot of people wanted me to shine the light on that. And I said, no, it's not about my recovery story. I understand. Yeah, I was able to turn my life around. Of course, I understand it. And I know they want me to tell it so I can help people. And I'm talking about the first push. So I was adamant about, even with the news people, of course, I want to hear the bad stories about the recovery part, whatever. I said, please, I'll tell you everything you want once I reach ground zero. After that, you'll hear it all, whatever. And I've kept my word to that. But the funny thing is, what I've noticed, I'm grateful I've stuck to my guns. I'm so grateful. And it's not me. It's just what was in my being was telling me that, So now what slowly was happening, the recovery people were coming out, or the stories were happening without me even knowing, and that was happening, and it was filtering in, and it's just momentum is building even more with that. And it's at the right time, when, and whatever. It's just crazy to me because the main reason is the main reason, and that will draw the. And I'm so glad because my number one thing is I would never want to hurt anybody by doing this. And a family member bring up old wounds for anybody. I don't want to do that. That's the number one thing with me. I'm always thinking before I react. Will this offend somebody that lost a loved one or whatever? That's the most important thing. But I found now that the recovery part of the story has got to the point where I speak about it a lot at different schools and stuff. And but on the street, this last push was I was blown away by what happened and on the first day. It was just unbelievable. For all of us were blown away. First of all, what they did at Newark Airport was just mind-boggling to me. It was just unbelievable. So
when was that? I know that was just that was the most recent one.
September 11th.
Yeah. That was the past September. Yeah.
What was the starting date? It was August 12th or 14th, I believe. Yeah. And so they let me push. It was I could go. This would take a while to tell what went on, but
go. You can go for it.
It was amazing. When we went to Newark Airport to have a meeting with everybody there, and sitting in this big boardroom, and my three guys that are with me are to my right, and 5 people from the police, the executives at the airport, everyone else sitting in there, these women, the higher ups at the airport. And as I started telling the story, they already had a plan set. They said, we're going to bring you out from this building here, and we're going to bring you onto the runway, and we're going to go, and we're going to bring you around, and it's the highway's right here. And it was like a mile and a half, and then onto the street. And so they brought us out in the van, and we got to ride the route. They were going to block streets off, everything else, and we were excited. But the problem was, in my mind, was nobody's going to see this. Nobody's going to see this in the terminals or the employees or anything else. So I didn't say anything in the van. We got back to the building, and we sat at the board meeting again. And I sat there and I said, listen, I just want to tell you that not only is this for the families I do this for, this is for, I get thinking about it. This is for these employees that might have fueled that aircraft that morning that are still working here today. And the minute I said that, I could see their jaws drop. And that I didn't have to say anymore. Not 3 days later, when I'm home, I get an email with a picture of the whole route being changed. Now they're going to bring me out onto the runway and let me go outside where the planes are for 4 miles. It was crazy. Wow. So I'm out there, but police escort me as planes are taking off around me. It was unbelievable. It was.
Oh my gosh, I have such chills.
It was unbelievable. So that was so exciting to me. I'm thinking there can't be anything better. But I got 300 more miles to go. But still, this was unbelievable. So, anyways, when they escorted me off that airport that day, the next police department picks me up, and I'm pushing in the middle of this town. Traffic everywhere, cars cutting in, and this cop jumps out of his car that's in front of me, escorting me. And 3 times he yells at people to try to cut around or whatever. Never says a word to me, this cop. And then, so I just stood there watching as he yelling at people, go, and then goes back and jumps in the car. The 4th time, he jumps out, he yells at somebody, comes over to me, goes, Paulie, I got to tell you something. Whew. He's there. I heard I was going to escort you today, and I couldn't wait to meet you. He said, my brother lives 1.5 miles from here, and he was in one of the towers, and he hasn't been the same since. We've been trying to get him help for over 20 years. He got the last train after coming out of one of the towers. He was 24 years old, worked for a bank, and he's been in and out of hospitals ever since. This cop is telling me this in the middle of the street, and I'm thinking, while he's saying this, I'm thinking how many times he got out of his cruiser and didn't get the courage enough to come over to me to say that.
Right.
Each time he probably wanted to say something to me.
And then
he's worried about his brother. He said, so I'm on shock. And listen, I said, I reached in and handed him a card. I said, please have him call me. I'll talk to him. Next thing you know, another cruiser pulls up, and that cop drives away, relieves him. And I'm pushing. All of a sudden, my cell phone rings. And this guy says, hey, Paul, I'm such and such. My brother was just escorting you. He told me to call you. Do you mind if I come out and walk with you? I was speechless. Oh. This guy comes walking down the street, disheveled, looked like a homeless guy, and come out the street. There's video of this. A flight attendant was behind me, filmed this meeting. I mean, this guy, me and him walk for like 2 miles crying, telling me. And since that, this is crazy. So I told him about my story, my recovery story, and all the stuff I could tell him, and try to give him some hope. And said, he had a lot of lawyers ripped him off. A lot of stuff trying to get help, and the story's unbelievable. The next day, so he leaves. This girl runs over. My first day at work for United, I want to meet you, Paulie. And so he stepped back and he walked away. And I told him, make sure you call me. The next day, I'm pushing down the street. What are the chances of this? I come up and the police said, will you stop at our station? And there's like 6 cops, a couple of detectives waiting for me. And I'm out there and I'm talking to them, and I see this couple standing off to the side. And I can notice them waiting to have their opportunity to come over to me. Mm. All of a sudden they walk over and this gentleman says, Paulie, I saw your mobile home. I knew it had something to do with 9/11. I need to tell you what I do, my company. We help people that are still struggling from the aftermath of 9/11 that haven't been able to get help. I was God. I said, you're not going to believe what happened to me yesterday. And I told him about this guy. So I get to the hotel that night, and I connect these 2 guys together. And ever since, this guy, now I'm in touch with this guy all the time now. Oh. He's helping this guy. It's crazy to me. Like
that, you're a connector. You are a connector.
It's like, how could anything after that thing in the airport, what could outdo that thing in the airport? Well, this outdid the whole push. That connection, that guy, knowing that he's not 20 years living like a hermit or whatever, from the after effects. His whole life was. But it goes, the whole thing with the cop not being able to have the courage to say something to me that he didn't realize, while he was telling me that, I was thinking of that. Like, how worried he must have been about his own brother, So, and stuff like that. Like the guys with me, we were speechless. Everybody was speechless the next day when this happened. They couldn't believe what they were hearing when that couple was in. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't wait for me to tell them about the guy, It's just, there's many of those stories, but that was really set the tone for this last one. It was like after that, I'm sure I don't know if you saw it, it was a long haul to Shanksville, 4 mountains, I had to go over 4 mountains and all that stuff. And it was nothing after meeting this guy. It was nothing. Like, there was no barriers at that point.
Right. So, but as you said, the cop, and thank goodness he didn't get relieved before, because then he would have been he got the courage to tell you that. And again, that's those are the stories that mean something. Those are the stories that happen all the time. And sometimes people they don't let themselves sit and think about how remarkable they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I often we get off, I can't wait to share a couple of things with you because you're going to be like, oh my God. So like, I understand everything that you're saying to like the degree, because this is what's happening to me right now kind of in my life, which is it's so refreshing also when people really live from their heart. And you, I know, have been around, I've been around, like you can feel when someone has an alternative motive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good. And I have to say, I don't really have a lot of those kind of people that come in and out of my life because I don't either, I don't really push up, but I know people that have, right? That like you said, that kid got taken advantage and lost all money because someone took advantage of his sorrows and his situation. Like that's so, exactly. It's like, who does that? Who does that?
I know.
But the fact that you were there and that you actually changed someone's life and not just one person, like throughout all your journeys, the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that you changed that you maybe will never ever know because it was just this, they met you when they needed to meet you.
Yeah. See, that's, I think, out of this whole thing is something I could have never even thought of, really, that part of this whole Paulie push thing. Like, I'm excited about when I meet the crew members' families, the ones that I have met and been able to do things with them. And that's so important to me to sit with them. But the stuff with strangers, like all over the place, like how could I ever imagine that some woman in Australia texts me or whatever, and people are saying that they ran their first 5K road race because of me. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I'm just pushing a hunk of metal down the street. But, it's just, that stuff is so what, it just still doesn't commute my head. I'm just grateful that I see the experience of people that I meet, all of it. I'm grateful for all of it, but the most important is to be with these crew members' families and to see what I believed it's so true. What I was thinking all these years was, and they don't say this to me, but I see it. And as I'm sitting at a table or whatever with them, the mothers, fathers of these crew members, the sisters or brothers, you can see their shoulders just drop down. Like, it's almost like they're saying, thank you. Because that's all they wanted. They didn't want anything else, but who am I to say what they wanted? But I can tell you to recognize their loved one from that day for what they were able to accomplish is important. And they never said that to me, but I know that. I see it in their eyes and their face.
And one of the other things, Paulie, that I want to touch on, and I think it's so, so important, is that you in your gut, you had a mission. And right, sometimes missions, like we have these ideas and then it grows, right? And sometimes it takes legs on its own. But, and because I remember from the first conversation, we did talk about, your addiction and how you were like, I didn't want it to be about that. This wasn't about me. This is not about me. It's my story. How my story, can help someone is not right. That's not my purpose right now. I know. And you even said, I remember, you're like, I know it will, but the fact that you stuck with that in your gut, I think is another reminder for people, because a lot of times we'll have these visions, right? Where we know like, okay, we're on to something. And it's like, how do you know that you're on the right path? People will ask me all the time, like, how do you know that you should have been following that? And I'm like, it's so, you can't put words to it, right? You can't put words to it. It's just things. And I call it the flow. It's just like when life kind of just flows, like it's just, and it's cool kind of teaching my kids certain times, like they're like, wow, that is like flow. But then when, you have like a barrier and it's like, okay, what is this barrier? Right. And that is, I think, the self-reflection that so many people don't do because of their own traumas, that they don't allow themselves to kind of be like, okay, why am I feeling like, okay, I can't put it into words why I don't want it to be about my addiction, right? I know that that's important and it's amazing that I did it, right? It's amazing that I was able to fight that and then build all of this, but that's not the purpose right now. And I think so many people don't sometimes stick with their guts because they get influenced by others. And sometimes when you have that feeling, it's so important just to be like, okay, I need to kind of get the words behind that feeling to be able to express it to like my team, right? Like, guys, I don't want it to be about that, but I know it's an important thing. I think that that's going to come down the road. And as you said, that's kind of what's happened. It's like now you're talking to others about, because you had these goals, you had all of these crews that you wanted to highlight and really honor. And it's like, okay, now all that you've built can take its own legs, right?
Yeah.
That core is built, that core and that reason.
I can tell you that I was brought out to, where was it? Michigan somewhere. Was it Michigan? Somewhere I spoke. So a conference, they asked me to come out there and speak. So me and Chris, who does the social media for me, we flew out there and I spoke it. And I was nervous because it was the first time I spoke in front of, not like schools or whatever. I've spoken in treatment facilities, but this was a corporate event for travel people and all the hotels and all the executives, right? Well, it was the first time I was able to, first time I merged the stories where I did bring up the addiction. Before we left, we said, is there anything specific they would like me to talk about? And they did say they had an opiate epidemic there. So not that it's everywhere, but so I did speak about it there. And it was sort of hard for me to merge the stories together. And I explained to the people there that that's what I was doing. It was my first time, and why and whatever. But at the end of it, the two women who reached out and put this thing together and wanted me to speak, and I would come up onto the stage and took the microphone. It was unbelievable. Each one of them lost their father from addiction. It was unbelievable. So little did I know, that's why it's not me. I swear to God, it's not me. This thing just keeps happening the way it's supposed to happen. It just does. It's nuts. Like, it's just, I just found out I'm going to be in the St. Patty's Day parade in Boston here. The oldest St. I'm Italian, but I'm going to be, whatever. But it's just, it just keeps happening. It's supposed to be,
because it's bigger than you. This is bigger than you.
It's just crazy to me. It's just crazy. I guess when something truly is supposed to be, it's supposed to be. There's no way around it. I mean, it's just, and of course I'm grateful for it. It's a different, the whole thing is just, it's amazing to be around people that are, you know what I love? I love seeing strangers talk to each other. I love that. It's amazing to me that when I was witnessing that on the street, side by side, waiting for me to come down the street, and then one would walk away, and the other would say, that's my next door neighbor. I haven't talked to him in 5 years. And I'm thinking, that's what's going on here. We're supposed to talk to each other, but, with this crazy world. So I love that part of this whole thing when I see people coming together with their kids, and that's what it's about. Because I know that these crew members that I knew, that's what they were like. That's how I felt when I worked with them. Everyone, they deserve to be recognized. And this shows what type of people they are. That's what they want. I mean, it's just, I couldn't even imagine, I couldn't in a million years, that when I think of that moment on that plane, when I come up with the idea, to today is just, how could I have thought? How could I have thought? It's just amazing how special it is for so many people. And it's not anything a big deal. It's just a metal card. Whatever. I don't get the whole thing still. I do and I don't, but I mean, it's amazing that the excitement in people's face over they want to see and it's fine by me. They want to see the card. They don't want to see me. The little kids, I love the little kids. They love pushing it and everything. So, but it's to me, it's just. I always joke about it. People say, "Well, how did you come up with the idea?" And I'm there. Well, if I pushed a wheelbarrow, I mean, no one would know I was a flight attendant. Of course, I got to push a beverage car. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but I don't know. I get lost for words because sometimes I think about what other people have come up with, and did they feel the same way? Like it was like not a big deal. Of course, I push a beverage.
Right. Well, but here's the thing is again, it was meant to be your path, but being a flight attendant and doing what you have done, like connection people, it's always been something that's in your blood. Like you enjoy that, right? You enjoy meeting strangers. You enjoy meeting people and having some small talk and then being like, "Oh, I loved that. I loved hearing that person's story." So that's something that when you were little, right? That's something that was inbred in you. That was a gift, whatever it was. And then your, journey took you to that next thing. So for you to see the connection, I mean, connection is what drives some people. I know it's what drives me. Like I love connecting when, and I even think back, when the kids were little and wherever we lived, grocery stores, I always made friends with the people that worked at the grocery store. They would come to the kids' soccer game. I would give them, cards. People would be like, "Who is that?" I'm like, "Oh, he works in, the Whole Foods and he's the fruit guy." And they're like, "You friends with the fruit guy?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." I mean, he just, the kids talk to him. And, when we lived in the city, our super, the kids, he would let the kids go and do calls with them. And they loved that. And our neighborhood guy, I always had made friends, with people like that. Our super came for Thanksgiving because he didn't have anywhere to go. Like that's always been someone that is me. But that is something that I was just born. I think I was born that way, right? And it gives me a good feeling. It makes me feel good to connect and small talk with people and also ask them questions. I'm curious about you. I know you're working behind the counter there, but like, what's your background? And this and that, and it makes people feel a little special because a lot of times people don't say please. They don't think they thank you. They don't see the person behind there. And I see whoever I really encounter. If you're a good person, I want to know more about you. If you're a jerk, I don't really care. I don't care who you are. If you're the president, if you're a multimillionaire, if you're not a good person and you don't come from the heart, I don't care. I have no patience for you. Right. And so I think for you that is something that's always been innate. And so when you're seeing people connect, it's just the feeling is so out of body, but it's so good. It's almost like, and I don't want to say this because like when you're high on life, it is a good feeling when you're connecting and making people, it's like this adrenaline that it's like, I'm going to keep following that. And not everyone can do that because not everyone has the ability. Not everyone has the grit. Not everyone, because what you're doing is hard. I mean, what you're doing is really hard. It's not like you're like, yeah, I'm just pushing a beverage. I mean, you have to train. You have to be organized. You have to have the right people around you. You have to, be a visionary. These are my thoughts. Hey, can someone else put I just had someone on the podcast so I have a podcast on dyslexia because I'm dyslexic with my, co-host who's he was in the NHL Stanley Cup winner. We just had a guy that has a company called Signature Lacrosse. And the reason why
can I ask you who the guy was in the NHL?
Yeah, his name is Brent Sopel. So he's my she was in Chicago. He's a Canadian. He's okay.
Yeah. Because my friend, I might have told you about my friend Kevin Stevens from Pittsburgh. He's the one that he was the one that helped me with the first push.
Oh, how funny. Okay. No, I'm sure you did, but yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, not at all. So, but the thing that's so cool is Dan, who owns this company, who's also dyslexic, was saying there's people that are visionaries, right? That have these big ideas. And we know we're going to get to the end of it. Like we know that it's going to happen, but all the little details, we have no idea. We're terrible with those little details, right? Like we're like, I don't know how it's going to happen, but you need the people in there to execute those little things. And so it is like almost like a well-oiled machine. So like what you're doing is hard. Like you have to make sure you're communicating all your ideas. So then someone else, and if they don't understand, like the thing that you said, which is so beautiful, is that in Newark, when you said, well, I also do it for that, the person listened to you, right? They could have been like, oh, great. Okay. I don't care. We're on this track. Like we don't care. We've done our work here, but that person cared enough to listen and then be like, you know what we need. So this is where I'm curious. I wonder if it was one person or did all of them get it? Or the one person was like, we need to change all of this.
I can tell you, I knew, well, I shouldn't say I knew, but I sort of sensed that my guys weren't sure about what I was saying there. Or maybe they were, but it didn't make a difference because I knew I had to say that. And because I knew that there was, I just knew that there was people that worked at that airport that just from the 2 previous years. That's what that people, the ground people were coming up and thanking me in Washington before I started out. Thank you for doing this. Guys and baggage handlers. So all of us, this is for everybody, really, is what it's for. So let's not, if we're going to do this thing, let's do it,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's what's beautiful. But, and again, and the fact that, like, it's bigger than you, but you're still so touched and so moved by every little part. Like, that's why people fall in love with you, because it's like, you just have this heart, and this vision that's like, this is what I want to do. This is what, I don't know why, I don't know how, I don't know what, how it's gone so big, even though it seems so simple to you, it's a connection for other people, right? It's like, oh, wait, I think of 9/11. There's so many sad stories, but then I also think of people like Paulie that are doing amazing things, that are honoring people and still bringing their stories, because that's when, you hear when someone has died, it's like the first couple years, and then all of a sudden it's like kind of, but that person, you're still suffering. And so the fact that you can bring that light and be like, I still see you. I still remember you. I still care about you. You still are someone, even though you're not on this earth anymore, you're still important to me. That's the beauty of it, what you're doing.
I know that now, after the first couple of years, more of the families have, found out about it. It's gotten, to that, because some of them didn't. The second one I had, when I finished the second one, the pilot's sister contacted me out of the clear blue, thanking me, thanking me. I can't believe what you did, my brother, and I wish you could have met my brother, whatever. So it's, I'm glad it's happening that way. I didn't call these people and say, I'm doing this to recognize you, because everybody deals with it differently. We just do. So it's happened the way it's supposed to happen. And I guess, I think, I'm no athlete. Trust me, I'm not. I played high school football and stuff, but I joke about I should have did this 20 years ago when I'm 64, but whatever. So, but anyways, I think the physical part, of course, that draws the attention. Especially the mountains of the firemen. I didn't know this, but the firemen I did know it at one point. The 4 mountains in Pennsylvania had to go. One of them, I heard the firemen saying to my guys, I don't know if he's going to make this one. They didn't know I heard it.
Right.
But because some of them are pretty intentional.
Yeah.
But I didn't care what they thought. That's really how, because I didn't make it. I don't give a shit what you're saying, because I'm going over the mountain. That's how I felt, Billy. But it was funny to hear that and thinking they didn't know I heard them. He's talking, I don't know, I don't know if he's going to make it over this mountain, whatever. But it's stuff, I know that is a big draw. This guy pushing that thing all the way, whatever. And it sounds, but to me, it's not. It's not a big deal to me to push it. It really, really isn't. I mean, of course, I got to be in shape or whatever. But when I'm out there, it's just I got to do it. That's all. I don't know how to explain that. I mean, I wish I was 20 years younger doing it. Yeah, it probably might be easier, but it's just something it's got to get done. That's all. So I think that's of course that draws the attention. I know people. I can't believe he did that, but it really, I'm telling you, Julian, I swear to you, it's not a big deal to me.
Because that's what it's meant to do. And that's what I think is so beautiful. Because if you went out and were like, oh, this is going to be hard, or like, oh, how am I going to do this? You wouldn't be it wouldn't bring the same thing, right? So you go out and you're like, I just know it has to be done. It's going to happen, right? I don't know how it's going to happen. And I say this all the time, like if something's important to me and I create it in my brain, everything's figure outable, right? I don't even think that's a word, but I will figure it out. Right. So like, give me a task. I don't know how I'm going to figure it out, but I'm going to figure it out. That's kind of the same mindset you have. It's like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm just going to get done, because there's not a choice. There's no choice there. It's not like, are you going to do it or you're not going to do it? I'm going to do it. Yeah. So how am I going to do it? That's the...
Well, something that I say it all the time. My guys was different, because I'll complain to them when I'm out doing it.
Of course.
Oh, yeah, fine. Come on. Where's the water? Whatever. I can be whatever. They'll say, oh, you complain all the time. But the bottom line is this is how I solve the whole thing. Anytime, there is no obstacle for me to get that beverage car to the destination. There's none. There's no obstacle, because I have options. I have any option in the world to get that thing there, whatever. If the road's closed, then I'll take a boat, whatever. It's endless. There's options. The difference is they didn't have any up there. They didn't have any options. They didn't have any options. They had to keep doing it. See, that's what the difference is. Like, I think of them when something's getting tough on the mountain, I'm burning out, my legs are burning. I think, are you shitting me? They didn't have it. They couldn't say my legs are hurting. They couldn't say I got to stop. They couldn't. They couldn't. I say that to myself all the time when I'm out there. All the time. Over and over and over again. I have options. They didn't have any options. They had none. They couldn't even think about an option. There was no fire truck coming up there for them. No police car coming for them. We have to figure something out quick in split second time, and with each other, with a horrible, horrible scene going on. I can't even imagine. So I guess I almost look forward to something tough, because it makes me want to work harder to get it done, because I couldn't even do what they did.
Yeah. No, and Paulie, I think that's beautiful. So again, you guys can go to pauliespush.com, but you can also go to Paulie's Push on Instagram, follow what he's doing. Is there anything that you want to share that's coming up? I know, there's sometimes there's things happening behind the woodwork that you're like, yeah, we can't share that. Just follow and we can see. But
oh yeah, I mean, no, we're right at the beginning stages of this next push, which is Boston once again to Ground Zero, New York, which I'm so excited because I can't wait to go through and meet the people again in Connecticut. I loved them; it was awesome. And New York, of course, and Massachusetts, but. This is one is to recognize the crew of Flight American 11, which was the first plane that morning. So it's so funny how this has happened, because I'm glad that these guys were really the first responders of 9/11 on American 11. And here I'm doing the fourth and final push. I don't know if it's a final push, but it'll complete all 4 aircrafts of 9/11. So that's in the planning stages. I'll be leaving it out of Boston in August. And I'll come into Ground Zero September 11th.
And I'll make sure that I'm in there somehow and we'll connect so I can give you a hug in person.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I mean, again, Paulie, thank you for doing what you're doing, because it just gives people hope. I mean, it really does, that you can dream something bigger than yourself, and it can happen. And don't let limitations of like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't know why. If you have something in your brain and it's important, go for it. So thank you again for joining.
Don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle.
I love it. I love it. Exactly. Don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle. You guys heard it. Yeah. So thank you again. You guys know what to do. Like, rate, review, and share. I mean, this episode, again, someone needs to hear it, because someone maybe doesn't know what Paulie has been doing. And maybe they have, have their own traumas from 9/11. They have traumas from somewhere else. They have addiction, and their family, their addiction themselves. You need to share this so they can listen and get some inspiration. So like, rate, review, and share. I hope you liked this episode of Your Next Stop. Please subscribe to my channel, share with your friends, and join in each week.